Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Robin. I am the Bibliophile Puzzler. I am going to do a brief whip-in chat while I'm working on this Diamond Art Club painting. It's called Hanging Out in the Game Room. I started it a couple of days ago. I've done about 6 squares, and I, at some point today, hope to finish this square. But I'm also in a jigsaw puzzle event, and I just got finished with a readathon, so I can't really give solid attention to any particular hobby right now because I'm doing puzzling, reading, and I have all my other stuff going on. So for right now, and I think did I just put some fills in the wrong place? I think I did. Wait a minute. Okay, no, I'm good. Okay, so what I thought I would talk to you about today is what's going on in my life and where I am with my reading since we're at the middle of the month. I might do a mid-month wrap-up video separate than this for reading. I haven't quite determined whether I'll do that or not, so I figure why not tell you what I've done with reading, and if I don't do the other video, then at least I would have covered part of it here. So what's going on in my life? Well, I have a lot of goals that I have set for the month of January and hope to carry through 2024. And with those goals, I have a different mindset, and that different mindset is helping me to realize those goals, even though we're only at the midpoint of this month. I feel that doing something that is good for my mental health is going to go a long way when it comes to me having more productive results in whatever endeavor I take on, whether it is diamond painting, working on puzzles, reading the Bible, working on my blog, reading books. All of that depends on where I am and what place I'm in. And so with that, I have set certain boundaries, and I am not going to let anyone or anything cause me to break those boundaries any longer. And I love how my therapist refers to setting boundaries as a moat in a medieval castle. You cannot enter the castle if that drawbridge isn't over that moat. And I have that drawbridge drawn up, and there are some who won't be able to traverse it no matter how hard they try. I was thinking of this term patently obvious or patently clear. Well, what does patently clear or patently obvious mean? It just means beyond a shadow of a doubt, what I'm doing should be clear and there should be no confusion. Black and white. And then I was reading a book yesterday, and there was a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, and the character in the book said only part of the quote. She said, "Today is a gift." Let me see if I don't want to misquote it, so I'm going to go grab it. Bear with me. My iPad is right here. You probably see my hand hitting it. Eleanor Roosevelt said that today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. That's what the character said in the book. And it's ironic because I have my therapist has all these quotes from people in the past, and he has them on little slivers of paper. So I have this, and I'm like, wait a minute. So I went to my planner and grabbed it. And the entire quote is, "Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. That's why they call it the present." So I am going to enjoy every day going forward. Now, I will admit that I do get dings on my mental health. Yesterday was a perfect example of a day that started off great and then it plummeted downward. But it did not slow me down too much. The only area that I slowed down is instead of reading 2 books yesterday, I read one book and about 150 pages of uh, The Count of Monte Cristo. I wanted to read two books, and the second book that I had wanted to read yesterday that I'll be reading today is, I believe it's Face Her Fear. Yes, Face Her Fear by Lisa Reagan. I think it's the 18th book in the Josie Quinn detective series. So I really wanted to read that yesterday, but I won't get to it until today. So that's the only significant downfall that I had, is not getting my goal of 2 books a day. So let's segue from my mental health to when I say I didn't do so great with one of my goals. Let's talk about my goals. I figure that I will read 62 books a month every month for the year of 2024. That would bring me to 744 books. Now, currently my Goodreads goal is set at 400, but I actually think I might go in there today and change that goal. And if I meet that goal, then every quarter, every 3 months, 4 months at a time, I should knock out 242 books, something like that. Now, why am I looking at such numbers for goals? Okay, not for prominence or anything like that, simply for goals. Why does that number have some significance to me? Well, I'm on NetGalley. NetGalley is a review site for reviewers, bloggers, librarians, and booksellers. And you receive ARCs, which are advanced reader copies, and you receive them and you do book reviews for the books that you're approved for. Well, on NetGalley, I have established a huge backlog because I suffer from long periods of depression, and I've had some really bad hits. And with those bad hits, I've had slow reading months. Like, I was looking at my 2023 spreadsheet, and in November of 2023, I read 7 books, and in December, I read 10 books, when I usually read at least 30 to 40 books each month. That's just 2 months representative of me having a rough go. So with me having a rough go, my NetGalley backlog has gotten huge. So I have a 2-year goal. Now remember, I said I want to do, let me see, I think I have, this might be written down in my planner. Okay, yeah. Oh, my handwriting is deplorable. Set goal of 62 books per month, 744 for 24, which is 248 per quarter, and that's something else. And then these are things that I'm doing. So this is my general planner. So yesterday I read Genesis 46 and 47. I have not yet done my Bible reading this morning. I'll do it after I make this video. So I'll fill that in. So I haven't done anything for today. And then I had to start another planner, and I'm reusing this cover, book club. I used this back in 2022. So I'm reusing this, and I had to create an entire new planner. I mean, look at this planner. Can you see how thick that is? You really can. It's showing up dark. So in this planner, if we go to today, the 16th, we're only going to see what I've done up until the 15th, which is yesterday, because I got up and I started working on this video. So I am going to be using this planner to track what I do for reading and for book reviews. Now, like I said, I did read a book yesterday, which was The Keeper of the Irish Secret, but I never wrote it. So let me just write it in really quickly. The Keeper of the Irish Secret. And like I said, I wanted to read Face Her Fear, but I didn't. So on the top column of these pages, I will write whatever I'm reading right now I'm doing a buddy read of The Count of Monte Cristo, which yesterday was chapters 34 and 35. Today it's chapters 36 through 39. I won't write it in until I do it. WIP and chat, which I am doing right now as we speak. And then how the goals that I set for 2024. And yesterday I wanted to write reviews. So if we open this back up, you see this notes page here. So yesterday I wrote 3 reviews. What have we done? Betrayal in the Wishing Bridge. Today, the 16th, I want to write 1, 2, 3, 4. But in actuality, I really want to write 5 because I want to write The Keeper of the Irish Secret. Okay, so these are book reviews that I would like to write today. And then tomorrow, I want to write Two Dead Wives, The Survivor, Death on the Scotland Express, and A Body on the Doorstep. So tomorrow I would like to write 4 reviews. So once I actually write them, I will put them on this green sheet. I don't want to put them in ink on the green sheet and not complete them. Today's book reviews that I plan on writing is The Fury by Alex Michaelides, Keep You Safe by Rona Halsau, It Goes So Fast, I can't remember her name, The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins, and The Keeper of the Irish Secret by Suzanne O'Leary. So I am on task for the most part. And so since I only read 1 book yesterday, today, if we look at my spreadsheet, as I mentioned, Face Her Fear and that author is Lisa Reagan. And I will try to read On a Quiet Street by Carla Kovacs. And I think those are the only 2 that I would get read. So like what I would do here is, so that I know that I want to read these, is I'm going to tag these for today, the 16th and the 16th. And then down here, I have The Count of Monte Cristo that I'm currently reading. I began it on the 7th and was scheduled to finish it on the 30th or 31st. It's with a huge group of people. It's a great read. So what I've been able to do is, there's one other thing I did on my book survey. You can barely see it, but you notice the light gray on some of these titles? That's at a glance will tell me what book reviews I have written, published, or scheduled. And I say scheduled because, for example, why Can't We Be Friends? That doesn't come out till March 5th. So it's written, it's on NetGalley and Goodreads, and it's scheduled to go up at 9 o'clock March 5th, 9 a.m. on March 5th. So I have decided last night to use this shading specifically to tell me if I've written book reviews, so that anytime I look at a month at a glance, I can see what book reviews I have yet to write. So that was an idea I came up with last night. So at this point, let's go ahead and talk about a few of the books that I've read. Sorry, I hit the camera. One book that I read, the first book I read of the month, was The Sleeping Girls by Rita Herron. And in that book, you have a girl that was found dead, and the detective, Ellie Reeves, is looking for the killer. But before she can really embark on her, and it looks like I haven't even written a review, and I don't use notes. By the way, whenever I make videos, at any time, this type of video, a jigsaw puzzle video, whether it's a haul video or a wrap-up video, I never ever use notes. It's always done extemporaneously. I don't know why, but that's the way I do it. So anything that I say about these books is strictly from memory. I have no notes or whatever. Anyway, in Rita Herron's book, she starts looking for this girl, and she goes out to her car, and on her car there's a Polaroid picture of a girl that looks like she's being held captive, and is in real distress. So now it's called The Sleeping Girls because of the way the first body was found. So the way the first teen body was found and the way it was posed was as if it was in repose or sleeping. And now Ellie is determined to find that other missing girl. And what's interesting about this book, and I read this book 2 weeks ago, but I still remember quite a bit about it. What's interesting about this book is these girls, the one that was murdered and the one that was in the Polaroid snapshot, were part of a clique of mean girls. There was a clique of mean girls at their high school. And so now that gives Detective Ellie Reeves kind of a direction to take as far as trying to isolate who the murderer slash kidnapper is. So that was a Sleeping Girls, and like I said, I have not yet written that review. Then I read this really, really good book, Can't We Be Friends by Denny S. Bryce and Eliza Knight. And that book was recommended to me. I'm in a group where I get DM'd all the time, and books are recommended to me left and right, and I go and read them when I have the time. And Can't We Be Friends is about Ella Fitzgerald and Marilyn Monroe and their friendship. Quite naturally, I had no idea that they were friends. But what was interesting about that book, what caught my attention about that book, is they each had their own battles in entertainment. For Ella Fitzgerald, she was black, it was in the 50s, and she was a plus-size woman. And so it was sexism and judgment against her physical size. And she wasn't, say, a glamorous, svelte woman who could grace the cover of magazines in the eyes of someone that's trying to publicize her. So sometimes she didn't get the jobs that she wanted. Or her and her band would get a job, and they would go and fly to another country and barely be able to, or not be able to even leave the airport once they arrived and it was discovered that they were black. So that was part of the story. And then with Marilyn Monroe's challenges, her challenges were because of some of her movies, like Some Like It Hot, she was being portrayed as a dumb blonde, but she wanted to step out of that shell. And then she had a movie role that was coming up that she would be singing in. So she had always been in love with Ella Fitzgerald's jazz singing. So she decided to write Ella and to ask her for singing lessons because she really wanted to come out of that stereotype of being a dumb blonde. She wanted to be recognized for her talent. And since the movie part that she was about to play would require her to sing, she wanted to do a great job. Well, at first, Ella's business manager, who was her cousin, was answering Marilyn's letters. Ella had no desire to befriend Marilyn, to deal with her, or whatever. But Marilyn was persistent, and she kept sending letters, and eventually Ella got to a point when she was impelled to make a quick response to Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was just so excited that Ella Fitzgerald herself actually answered a letter that she called her. She actually called her long distance. And Ella Fitzgerald is like, hello? Who is this? Well, that was the beginning of a strong and wonderful friendship between the two of them. So they would get together whenever one of them was in the close proximity to the other, visits and dinners and going to restaurants and things of that nature. But as the years went on, and anybody familiar with Hollywood, you know that Marilyn Monroe died young at the age of 36 of a drug overdose. Well, our authors, Denny S. Bryce and Eliza Knight, what they did is they showed a great amount of respect for the challenges of drug addiction when it came to Marilyn Monroe, and the conclusion and the way that they handled the ending of the book was done so very well. Now that's a hardcover book which is currently on my nightstand. It's not a NetGalley book. It was a book the publisher sent me. No. I'm thinking of It Goes So Fast. I'm sorry. This Marilyn Monroe, Ella Fitzgerald book was a NetGalley book that was recommended. I am going to talk about another book that is it's a nonfiction. I think that's why I slightly got confused, because I generally read fiction, but of late I'm reading memoirs and historical fiction, or fiction that's like, for example, I want to say something else about this book. This book, Can't We Be Friends, is not a memoir. It's tagged as historical fiction because our writers took literary license when it came to the conversations that they recorded or portrayed between Marilyn Monroe and Ella Fitzgerald. So I thought that was interesting, because I'd like to read a memoir at least once a month. Like, for example, the next memoir I'll be reading is Britney Spears' memoir. And over the last 2 or 3 years, I've read maybe a dozen or so. Well, this one is not a memoir. It's written as historical fiction. So I just wanted to mention that. Then I read 3 books in the Spice Isle Bakery Cozy Mystery series. They are Against the Current, Hard Dough Homicide, and Coconut Drop Dead, and that they are by Olivia Matthews. And what's good about those books is, first of all, it was the beginning of a new series, but I did have to reread Against the Current, which I read late last year, but I never wrote the review. So I reread Against the Current and then the other 2, and then I wrote a series review on my blog. That's a feature of my blog where I will binge read a series and write a long blog post which comprises of several books in a series. So that's what I did with that Olivia Matthews series. And we have a young pizzeria owner who started her own pizzeria with her, a young bakery owner who started her bakery business with her parents. Her grandmother is there just about every day, and her brother, who is an attorney, he drops in whenever he can, and together they run this bakery. But it's not just a bakery, they take on catering jobs. And in each of these stories, Against the Current, Hard Dough Homicide, and Coconut Drop Dead, there have been murders that have taken place. So our character becomes a detective. And I want to bring up my review because they called her something that I found to be hilarious. And it will only take me a second to find it. There we go. They called her, what did they call her? Her name was Lindsay Murray, and they knew that whenever anything would happen, she would be the one that would solve the crime. I can't find the moniker that they gave her, but for the first book, for example, Against the Current, her mother seemed to, her second book, her mother seemed to be the likely suspect. The first book, then Lindsay, her bracelet had gone missing, and because her bracelet had gone missing, she was considered to be a suspect. And then in the third book, it was a festival, and a singer at the festival had been murdered. And so those were those 3 cozy mystery books. The reviews are up on my blog. The reason that I stumbled is because just before this, I read another miniseries of our character being a pizzeria. So I have a cozy mystery series of a baker and a cozy mystery series of a pizzeria owner, both new businesses. So I got a little stumble there. And that cozy mystery pizzeria book is Public Anchovy #1. And that's where I got just a little bit confused between the characters. So in the Spice Isle Bakery Mystery Series, our character is Lindsay Murray, the bakery owner with her parents, her grandmother. Her grandmother's hilarious, by the way, and her brother, who was an attorney, but now he works alongside her at the bakery. Whereas with Public Anchovy #1, we have Delilah O'Leary, and just like Lindsay in the other series had started a new business, Delilah, oh, I should be diamond painting, shouldn't I? Just like the bakery was a new business, and the Public Anchovy series book, which is the Deep Dish Mysteries series, that's a new business. So I'm currently reading those two cozy mystery series. Then I read The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. Now, I have not yet written that book, but I have not yet written that series, but The Heiress basically was somebody was about to possibly inherit quite a bit of money, but there was some controversy about the inheritance, and so there's some history there that goes back to determine what actually happened in that particular family that would allow or disallow the inheritance to be given to the rightful person. But it was a mystery, like a mystery thriller. So if you read any Rachel Hawkins books, you know that they're going to be heavy on the mystery. Something is always secret and something is always uncovered. And in this case, because of the person that would receive the inheritance, then it was critical that they get to the bottom of the mystery that was in that book. And I am going to bring this one up on Goodreads because I want to tell you the character's name, and I can't quite do that because, like I said, I have not yet written that review. So if you notice, it's Goodreads is opening, so I'm going to run over to my books, and I'm going to wait and wait and wait, and then I'm going to click read. I'm sorry for this. I should have had these windows open. Next time I do a WIP and chat, I will have the windows open so that I can just tap the screen. So if I go to The Heiress, I just want to give you the name of the character. I have read 3,296 books, so it takes Goodreads a second or two to populate sometimes. So with The Heiress, I'm going to give you the premise. We have Ruby McTavish, Callahan, Woodward, Miller, Kennemore. Okay, why did this woman have so many names? Well, it's because she was married 4 times. And she died, and then her grandson Cam, was set to inherit. There's controversy. Why is there controversy? One is, first of all, why did Ruby marry so many times? Secondly, what happened to all of her husbands? And let's just say she was never divorced, she was always widowed. There's part of the story there, and I'll leave it at that. So then the second question is, was she the rightful owner of these millions of dollars that she would pass on? And if she was the rightful owner, why is that even a question? Well, that begs that leads into the fact that when Ruby was an infant, she was kidnapped or missing for a short period of time. And when she was returned to her family, everybody was happy. Ruby was found. There's the mystery, and I'll leave it at that. Excellent book. Excellent book. Anything I've read by Rachel Hawkins, I have loved. I've never read a Rachel Hawkins book that I haven't enjoyed, and that one certainly fits the bill. The next book I read was The Weekend Retreat, and I don't believe I wrote that book review yet, and I am trying to bring this up. Now, this was by Tara Leskowski, and in this book we have a very, very affluential family called the Van Ness family. And they are heirs to a copper fortune, and they get together for a weekend at their winery estate. And in this particular case, they're getting together for a birthday celebration. Well, somebody is out to get them, and it's kind of like a locked room situation, because you only have so many characters, and one of those characters has an ulterior motive, and therefore that weekend retreat could and very likely will end in a tragedy in one way or another. And I don't believe I've written that review, The Weekend Retreat. But again, I showed you earlier that I want to get to that. But I got to rush through this because I've got a few more books to talk about. Then we have The Survivor by Iris Johansen. I think it's the 17th or 18th book in the detective, the Eve Duncan series. She is a forensic pathologist, but this doesn't focus on Eve. She's in the book, but she's not the primary character. Well, in this particular book, there's mystery in the mountains, and a lot of it has to do with archaeology and finding out why a certain body was discovered and who is trying to hone in on a very specific part of a population in a certain area. And I have to put it like that because I want to tell you something about The Survivor. I read The Survivor months ago, but I never wrote the review, so I am doing some rereads for books that I haven't read. Oh my goodness, I thought it was 18 or 19. Can you believe it's the 30th book in the series? 30. Eve Duncan number 30. Wow. Okay. Sorry, that just tickled me because I thought it was, well, I've read every book. So anyway, in this book we have Riley Smith, who is an archaeologist. Whoops, I had drills on my pen. I didn't know. Let's clean that up. I went to straighten something with drills already on the pen, so we'll just fix that real quick. That only takes a second. Now anyway, like I said, Riley Smith is an archaeologist, and she asks Eve for help, and they go to Southeast Asia, and somebody is wanting something, and they're willing to kill for it. And it's very mysterious because of it's kind of mythical, if I can say that, because of the history and the superstitions around the archaeological dig that Riley was on before she was in a situation where she needed Eve's help. Now, in every Iris Johansen book with Eve Duncan, whether it's Kendra Knight, Riley Smith, Eve Duncan herself, whatever characters whatever characters our author, Iris Johansen, lays out in her Eve Duncan series, there's always a romantic entanglement. And in this case, it's Riley who has a romantic entanglement. I wanted to make that clear because even though these books are mystery thrillers, they are also a bit of romance in there, even though sometimes the romance is beset by difficulties and tragedies. So every book has a little bit of, just a little bit of spice because of the romantic entanglements. I just wanted to make that clear because it takes the book away from the mystery sometimes because of whatever relationship is being formed, forged, or growing. It's just a little thing that Iris Johansen does. Then I read Two Dead Wives by Adele Parks. Now, let me tell you, Adele Parks is another author who never leads me down the road in a bad way. Now, this is the DCI Clements book number 2. And the thing about Two Dead Wives, the only thing, and I gave this one 4 stars instead of 5, is even though Clements is the detective, she is kind of like an afterthought in this whole book. And in this book, we have a father who was so happy that his daughter came back, and now she needs brain surgery and he's going to take care of her. That's the premise. Okay? Now, meanwhile, there's a bigamist named Kylie Gilligan who had been murdered, and so everybody's confused as to why this woman was a bigamist and why she had 2 husbands. Okay? Then the thing is Kylie really dead? Is Kylie really gone? And if Kylie's gone and Kylie is dead, and then we have Stacey Jones who is in need of a brain surgery, what is the connection between them? Think about that. And that's why it's called Two Dead Wives. But I'm going to leave you hanging on that because as far as, no, I haven't written that review yet either. Boy, do I have a lot of reviews to write. But I loved it. I loved it. Now, I want to talk about North of Nowhere by Alison Brennan. Now, I love Alison Brennan. I probably have read maybe a dozen or so of her books, and so usually whenever her books come up on NetGalley, I definitely want to grab them. And this one was great because I had to do it as a reread so that I could write the review. But in this particular book, we have Kristen and Ryan McIntyre who are on a plane with someone that they call their father. Their plane is shot down, and they are now in the elements trying to get to safety, but the man that they have looked to as a father, he gets killed as a result of that plane crash. Well, their actual father, his name is Boyd, he's a mobster, and that's why those kids were in custody of somebody else who was protecting them. And he was eventually found. The plane was shot down. He's killed. Now the kids are in a race for their lives. But as they trek through the frigid conditions, you have other people who have part of this history with this mob type family. And then you have the head of the family is the grandmother, and she was a terrible person. Terrible person. Really good book. I'm so glad I reread it. And the reason that I'm rereading a few books this month of January is because I read some books during the time my depression was really bad, and I did not want to write any book reviews until I remembered the story in full. So that was North of Nowhere. Then this is the book that I said that it's not a NetGalley book. It goes so fast. It was sent to me by the publisher as a hardcover book. And it's a simple book. It's a book about a mother with 2 sons, one who's about to turn 18 and one I believe that is 16. And she is a journalist, and she has an NPR radio show, and she is realizing that her kids are growing up, and they're growing up quickly. And at some point, she needs to slow her life down in order to give the attention and time to her sons, because any parent knows that your kids grow up excuse me, any parents know that your kids grow up too quickly. And then you say, oh, I missed their first tooth, or I missed their first step, or I missed this, or I missed that. So it was just a nice little story. I think it was only 240 pages, but I'm glad that I read it because it really helped me to remember the times when my kids were growing up. You don't want to be a helicopter parent, but at the same time, you don't want to let your kids go. You want to be there for them. So that was a good book. And then I read something by, wait a minute, let's see, what did I read next? We All Keep Secrets by Cheryl Brown. And now, whenever I read Cheryl Brown, which I would guess, excuse me, my throat is a little dry. Whenever I read anything by Cheryl Brown, and like I said, I started to say I have read at least a dozen books by her, I'm not ever disappointed. And in this particular book, you have somebody who takes on a job at a small, kind of like a factory or some type of production, a business where there's things are being produced. And the boss calls her into his office and asks her point blank if she'll watch his kids because him and his wife have an event that they can't get out of, and their nanny left suddenly. And she's like, well, I kind of have a little child minding experience. I did work at a nursery. I guess I can do it. So she gets to his house, and the wife is like, who is that? And he's like, oh, she's going to watch the children. The children are, I think, 6-year-old Ollie and a little 3-month-old baby named Fern. And the mother's like, I'm not having a complete stranger watch my children. Are you serious? Well, he's like, look, she's been working for me for over a year, which she had only been there for 2 weeks. But he tells the wife, I know her. I vetted her. I've checked her references. She's fine. So the wife takes it and says, okay, fine, and she lets the woman watch her child. Now, this book had really, really good, unreliable narrators, okay? Really good. Because on the one hand, the wife seems like she was a gaslighter, a manipulator, and a liar. Then on the other hand, the husband seemed like he was a user and a manipulator. And then the one that was the childminder, she had secrets from her past. So this book was really good when it came to having unreliable narrators. Really, really good. And therefore, it was a great book. And again, it was by Cheryl Brown. I loved it. Then the next book I read was The Fury by Alex Michaelides. Now, I love Alex Michaelides. I have read The Silent Patient, The Maidens, and I feel like there's one more. And his books are really good. And in this particular book, now this is one of the book reviews that I plan on writing today, but this one was really, really, really good. Now, I will say before I tell you anything about the book is on my NetGalley page or my NetGalley group where I talk to other book reviewers, it's almost like a 50-50. I hated it, I loved it. I hated it, I loved it. Me personally, I'm going to go 4 stars with it. And in this particular book, we have an ex-movie star and her friends. They take on a trip to a Greek island. And somebody is murdered, okay? The actress or the ex-movie star, her name is Lena Farah. And now she invites her friends to this private Greek island. And as the book is written, it's written with a narrator. So you have what's going on in the book, and then you have the narration. You have what's going on in the book, and then you have the narration. And the narration is done in first person. It's a different style. And maybe that's why there was I'm sorry, I forgot to see what drawer this is. Why? It's a different style, and maybe that's why it's up in the air as to how people felt about it. Now, when you look on Goodreads, the overall rating for almost 7,000 ratings is only 3.66 stars. So I'm going 4. So 2,707 reviews, and it averages 3.66. So Alex Michaelides did not hit it out of the park with this one when it came to readers. But I enjoyed it. I think he's a great writer. He really is. And then I read Housebroke by J.C. Burton. That was a romance, the only romance that I have read so far this month, and I believe the only romance that I have lined up for January. And it was a woman who was house sitting, and she had 5 dogs because she was a foster mom for dogs, and she can only stay in the house until it sells. And one night she is about ready for bed, and she hears somebody come in the house, and they came in with a key, and he's like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "Who are you?" Well, he's like, "I just bought this house." She goes, "Well, this house belongs to my friend." He goes, "No, I just bought it." So they call the friend, it's confirmed, and she's like, "Look, before I go, are you hungry?" And she fixes him this fabulous meal, so he has an idea. How about you stay in the guest house and work as a personal chef while I renovate the house? He is a house flipper who is also a multi-millionaire, so he hires her as his personal chef, and this will give her time to save up enough money because she was left on lurch by her husband, who took her for every penny her ex-husband that she's divorced from, took her for every penny she has. She lost her home, she lost all her money, she lost all her belongings, and all she has left is a small suitcase and the dogs. And it becomes a love story between them. So it kind of reminds you of Pretty Woman. I hate to say it, but it does. And then, let's see. Oh my goodness. What Have We Done by Alex Finley. Oh my goodness. Okay. At a point in time, there were 5 teenagers who lived at a place called Savior House. Okay, they lived at Savior House, but they all went their separate ways. It's years later, and 3 of them are being hunted because one of them was just murdered by an assassin. And so you have, I know you have Donnie, you have Lana, I can't think of the third character. And their lives took different directions. One's a drug addict and a former rock star, or a rock star. One is a movie producer, and I forget what Lana's job was. But now they're being, why am I forgetting what Lana's job was? When Lana was living at Savior House when she was 15, she was recruited to be an assassin for a secret organization. At some point, she was able to retire. She married, she became mother to a stepdaughter, and she had a little girl. Well, when the drama starts, she is ordered to take on another job to perform another hit. And this hit could cost her her life and the life of her family. So it was very fast-paced. Very, very, very fast-paced. Really, really good book. Really good book. And I'm only going to talk about one more book right now, and that is The Women by Kristen Hanna. Now, this is a book review that I've written, but it won't publish until February 6th. I don't think I have any more Ys. It won't publish until February 6th. And The Women is about a woman named Henrietta, is it Henrietta or Frankie? Frankie, whose brother Finley went to Vietnam, and when they were growing up as children, they were very close, and her family had a lot of respect for veterans. So her brother is gone, so she decides, I want to join the Army too. So she became a nurse, and she joined, and she became part of the she became a second lieutenant for the Women's Army Nurse Corps. And she's all set to go to Vietnam, and then something terrible happens. What happens? Two naval officers show up at the door, and that only means one thing. They have bad news. So Finley's killed. Now Frankie does not want to go to Vietnam, but she has no choice. She's already committed. So she goes and she works as a nurse, and she experiences a bunch of things there. But what's interesting about this book is it's in two parts. It's Frankie before and during Vietnam, and Frankie after Vietnam. Two separate parts of the book. And the only thing I'm going to say about this book is the tagline for this book is, there were no women in Vietnam. PTSD, veteran care, veteran affairs, all of that, Frankie had to fight for, because anytime she tried to get help, the expression, there were no women in Vietnam. And then the book touched on PTSD and prisoners of war. And this was really sensitive to me, because I remember when my grandfather came back from Vietnam, came back as a prisoner of war, and he lived with us for a long time. And I remember telling his story in the current events one day at school. So this book really got to me. Another reason this book got to me is Kristen Hanna, the author of The Women. When she writes books, you feel what those characters feel. Somehow she has a way to emote in such a manner that you are part of this drama. And like I said, you had Frankie before the war, during the war, and then you had Frankie after the war. Excellent, excellent book. It's already my favorite of 2024. And to be quite honest, a few years ago, The Four Winds was my favorite. I think back in 2022, The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna was my favorite read of the year. I have a very strong feeling that The Women is going to be my favorite read of 2024. So this book comes out in a couple weeks, and you'll see it on my blog when it comes out. So I'm just going to end it there. I hope my head was, no, my head wasn't in the camera. I'm going to end it there. I didn't put down a lot of drills because I was flipping around on my iPad, but I just wanted to make this video because I just wanted to tell you that I'm really excited about some of the goals I have, the mental health stand that I've taken about erecting proper boundaries and keeping people out of my life that don't belong there, and making goals and sticking to those goals and enjoying the books and writing those book reviews. And like I said, if we just look at this really quickly, anything that I have in gray, I've written the reviews. So if you see that it's just a white background, I still have a few book reviews to write. So that's it for this WIP and Chat. I hope you enjoyed it, if you were able to stay with it. If you did, and it was informative and made you think about at least one or two of these books, please go ahead and give me a like, because that really helps my channel. And I will be back with more. I'm going to go work on the jigsaw puzzle now and get that video up in another day or so. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.